All right, Jaguars, AFC South champs. How about that? Worst to first. That's what that is. Worst to first. Might be giving a lot of Texans fans hope. We'll localize it in a sec, but let's just react to the game itself. And the AFC South avoids with Tennessee coming up short. The AFC South avoids having a team with a losing record win the division. What some would say ugly game, but that was an extremely hard fought game. If Tennessee had won that game, I don't know that they're going to be able to even play next week. They definitely would have had to ice up, to say the least. Over half their offensive line was out. Josh Dobbs was making his second career start, really first start in which it was a game where winning was top priority. First start last week against the Cowboys. No playmakers on offense outside of Derrick Henry for the Tennessee Titans. At one point, they were 7-3. They lose their final 7. Jacksonville, I think, was 3-6. And then they ended 2-6, and they ended up being 3-7. So it's really the tale of the first half and second half of the season. Tennessee actually started out 0-2. I actually think Tennessee deserves a lot of credit for the way they fought in this game. They're depleted. Mike Vrabel, in his time as Titans coach, the team has consistently overachieved. They went to the AFC South championship. They were the 1 seed last year, had no business doing that. But I do wonder if they're kind of at a crossroads. I think at the very least, they're at a crossroads where they got to figure things out. They're going to have to cut some guys. I think they're going to have to cut Taylor Lewan. They got some other guys that are aging. Ben Jones isn't getting any younger. Derrick Henry's led the league in carries the last 4 seasons. If you're not going to get him a better quarterback, he's basically just going to be running into brick walls or through brick walls, in fairness, for the next year or so. It's hard to imagine that lasting too much longer, although he does have like an Adrian Peterson vibe to him where it seems like the last few years you've been saying that about Derrick Henry. But the Titans are at a crossroads. They just fired their general manager. They have maybe the worst receiving core in the NFL. I mean, the Texans are pretty close, especially with Brandon Cooks basically quitting and then coming back and quitting and then coming back. And Nico, it's probably between the Titans and the Texans for a worst receiving core in the NFL. But the Titans, the first 45, 50 minutes of this game, this was the recipe that they needed to win. I said on Twitter that the Titans went to the club looking to fight, and the Jags went to the club looking to dance. And that's what it looked like early on. The Titans wanted to hear that little scrappy, and the Jags wanted to hear that Soldier Boy or T-Pain. That's a millennial reference. Some of y'all are very young, and y'all probably don't even get that reference, so I could be dating myself. But everything was going perfect for the Titans early on. And then it just all fell apart at the end with that fumble. The Dobbs fumble, Trevor Lawrence kind of got bailed out here because Trevor Lawrence had a couple of really, really boneheaded mistakes, and it seems to kind of be a theme for Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor's good. I think he's going to be a really, really, really good quarterback, but some of the misses that he has, like it seems like he has a couple of them a game where they're just really bad misses, like almost Davis Mills-like misses. Now, over the course of that 60 minutes, he's going to sprinkle in some greatness, and you're going to see why people thought of Trevor Lawrence the way they thought of Trevor Lawrence. But each game, if you watch Trevor Lawrence, and I watch as much Jags as I can because I like to watch the division. But each game, there'll be even the game against the Texans last week. Like there'll be misses that sail over the head. He had the one in the end zone that I mean, I think Jeff Driscoll could have made that throw. And then he had the pitch where if he pitches it the right way, instead of kind of getting cute with it, I know that it was finesse ball anyways. And, you know, maybe they got what they deserved. But it seemed a little bit unnecessary, and you just see stuff like that with Trevor Lawrence ever so often. And fortunately for him, because of the fumble, he didn't have to go back out there and lead his team on a drive to win the game. So I feel he kind of got bailed out. I just don't see any way that the Chargers lose to the Jags. I know sometimes these playoff games where the team from the worst division hosts them, they pull off the upset. The most memorable one was the Beastquake when Marshawn Lynch had the run against the New Orleans Saints. That was one of those times, but I don't know. Maybe the Jags can put it together. I mean, their defense played pretty well today. They played pretty good. The Titans would have had no chance to beat anyone. There's a reason they lost 7 straight. Just the fact they were in this, I think they deserve a lot of credit, but it is a crossroads situation. I don't know where they're going to go. As far as the Jags, it'll be interesting. Doug Peterson's he's been in these situations before. He's made runs, but they just seem to be a little bit far off. Going to the comments, Captain Stu says, good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, my friend. It's really hard to watch the amount of fans and energy packed into the stadium in Jacksonville. This should be the H. If anything, it shows you how winning quickly gets fans back. Jacksonville's got an underrated fan base. They got a lot of passion for their squad. Now, they've been through some tough times. They've been through some Texans-like times. I mean, hell, they've drafted a number 1 in the draft the last 2 seasons. But Jacksonville and Houston, whenever they get in the playoffs and there's a team you can get behind, that's the atmosphere you're going to get. We haven't had that since Buffalo a couple of years ago. But, I mean, if the Jags can do it, maybe the Texans can do it. We'll get into that. I did think Travon Walker probably played his best game. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I watch every single game, but it seemed like a lot of people who covered the Jags, a lot of people who do such a thing, they agreed he had his best game. Still think they should have drafted Aiden Hutchinson, and, you know, we might be looking at this team completely different, but he looked really effing good today. That was definitely his best game. He's really good at not getting dominated by tight ends. That is definitely a thing. Defense wins games. Defense won this game. I can assure you that when the playoffs begin, there will be some offense winning games. I can assure you, JT. Jalen Johnson, thank God the Titans didn't win. Nobody wanted to see Derrick Henry run the ball 40 times. I kind of enjoyed it, but I don't think I would have enjoyed it next week because I don't think they would have had a chance in hell at winning. They are in no man's land. They might need to trade Henry and let some other guys go and start up the rebuild. I don't know if they can trade Derrick Henry at this point. I don't know what that would do for them. And I don't know what Mike Vrabel wants to do. I know he damn sure doesn't want to rebuild. Trading A.J. Brown was a big mistake by them. I mean, you saw Vrabel's reaction when it happened. It wasn't like the DeAndre Hopkins trade. They did get a first-round pick. And eventually you got to make some of those decisions. But in their situation, you know, it's not like Ryan Tannehill is Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or, you know, name another receiver that gets traded with a good quarterback. A.J. Brown was really important to what they did. And given the fact that their window just seems, I mean, I don't even know that it's really been fully open, but you know what I mean. They probably should have found a way to pay A.J. Brown. I think Mike Vrabel agrees. I think that's a big reason why they fired their general manager. Matt asks, do you think that some teams think Bryce could be a shorter Dobbs? I don't know what you mean by that. He's definitely shorter. He's got a much better arm than Dobbs. He's got better arm talent. He reads defenses better. He would have seen the guy coming from the backside probably. So I don't know what that means. Not Landry. We have the worst wide receiving core when we trade Cooks. Jalen says, Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's between the Texans and Titans, but yeah, they're both really, really bad. But I will say when Brandon Cooks is playing good, and he hadn't played good this year, um, I think he's better than anything Tennessee has. Although I like Robert Woods, so yeah, the Texans have the worst wide receiver core. I like Robert Woods. It's just easy for him to get lost with these guys. So I take that back. I'll say that. I'll say the Titans are slightly better than the Texans. As a Texans fan, this is awful. Jags are AFC South champs. It's okay. It could be worse. JT check down on fourth in season is crazy. I don't know what he was doing there. That was crazy. Credit to Jacksonville for the atmosphere. They got to be feeling good about the Jags. Yeah, they do, and they should, and they deserve it. And it's a great fan base, and it's actually a pretty likable team as well. So they deserve it. Damn, I wish the Texans can get back to winning football. You and me both. Hopefully that starts as soon as tomorrow into Monday. Jalen, Lawrence has some misses. He needs to get that together, no doubt. Matt Callahan are going to drop the hammer on the coaching staff and Lil Nicky, and we need fresh start, new QB, preferably Bryce Young. Just have to lose tomorrow afternoon. We're better than the Jags. Okay. Know about that. Troy says, hey, what's up, Cap? Jacksonville has been loyal. Yes, they have. Very good fan base. Charles says that fumble call was ridiculous. I didn't think so either, man. Like, I thought that was a throw. And you know the weirdest thing about that wasn't a fumble by Dobbs on that pass. Ball was in hand. Ball came. I've never seen that called a fumble before. And I just wasn't really – I didn't have like a strong enough take on it. But it just seemed like everyone, including that annoying rules expert that ESPN has, who for some reason has a hot mic and just decides to interrupt Troy and Joe all the time, no matter what, when they don't even ask for him. I didn't really think that it was. I mean, I thought if you would have just shown me that play, I thought it was a forward pass. But did you guys notice how like quick that review was? I wish all reviews were that quick. Now, I know it wasn't a challenge and it's done upstairs, but just the timeliness in which they made that decision, I wish that happened all the time. But I'm with you, Charles. I'm glad you brought that up because myself, I thought it was obvious. But even Dobbs's reaction was kind of weird. Like Dobbs wasn't even selling it. And I thought that was strange. Like the first thing that I noticed was they ran it in. And I assumed, okay, they're running it in because they let it play out and then they review it because they don't want to, they don't want to make the definitive thing. It's going to get reviewed no matter what. So they do that. Like they do that all the time. As soon as I saw Dobbs and not even really selling it and just walking off the field with his head down, I was like, okay, did he fumble? Then I heard that annoying rules guy start talking about how he thought it was a fumble. I feel like Troy thought it was a forward pass at first, but then he kind of got talked into it just by how quick it was, which is kind of the same thing that happened to me. And then they called it a fumble. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Charles. I didn't think so either. I mean, I know it kind of slipped out, but he still had it in his finger and he threw it forward. Like it didn't just bounce that far. I'm with you. But I mean, maybe we're alone on that, but on first look, I thought that. Ryan's asking how we feeling about tomorrow. I'm hoping they lose and get the number one pick. I'm starting to feel like Chicago might trade with the Texans if they have the number one pick, because I think Eberflus is going to fall in love with one of these guys because he's a defensive guy, and defensive guys will easily fall in love with Carter or Anderson. So my fear is that the Texans lose and then have to give up like their second round pick or something like that just to move up one spot. And that would be a disaster. Although I'm starting to get a little bit more hopeful because I don't think either one of these teams is going to be giving maximum effort. And I think Sam Ehlinger is like the hardo preseason hero. Like he had one of the best preseasons of all time. Like you look at Sam, I'm not exaggerating either. You look at Sam Ehlinger's preseason, it was incredible. And he's one of those guys who's always going to try. He's always going to be gritty. There's a little bit of contagion. It's contagious. It's like the opposite of Davis Mills. So if there's any hope for Texans fans, I think you got the right guy at quarterback right now because he's not going to be bored. He's going to treat this like it's his Super Bowl. Hell, it might be. This is really his last He's got to get some good tape out there. So I actually think you have the right quarterback. Kevin Bowen said the same. So I'm feeling 50-50 could go either way with the Texans. Now I expect Lovey to go all out because I think it's going to be his last game, but I don't know that the players are really going to be going all out. They're ready for vacation. They're ready to roll. And let's be honest, Davis Mills stinks. But I think you have the right guy in Sam Ehlinger. Zach Moss is also running pretty good for the Colts. So yeah, I think I'm starting to feel a little bit better about this. Brian says, "What's up, buddy? I wrote the Texans and asked them to get a new coach, keep the red helmets, use the old Oilers colors, and draft Bryce Young." Okay, well, hopefully that letter reaches them in time. Jim Stamos says that Dobbs fumble for a touchdown was a killer. I think the Titans defense could have held him. I do too. Trevor kind of got bailed out by that. There was a lot of pressure on Dobbs, though. I agree with that. Corey, what do you think about all the Levy news? I mean, it's pretty standard. I mean, I think he wants to make his case. I think Cal's going to do the right thing. But yeah, he wants to make his case. I just don't think Levy has a case. I don't think anyone that has actually watched him believes that he has a case. As I brush off the mat, what's the conversation Cal and Levy having? Levy's saying that we've been really close. Levy's saying that we don't have a lot of talent. Levy's saying that expectations are unrealistic. He's saying he needs more time. He's saying probably that, Jalen Petrie's looking better. Christian Harris is looking better. And once they get a quarterback, they can figure stuff out. Cal McNair is probably saying, oh, well, okay. Yeah. And then him and Caserio are going to talk, and Levy's going to get a nice fat check. He's going to leave with an opportunity no one else would have given him. And he is going to have his 12th losing season of 17 seasons of coaching football. Nathan says Jacksonville back. I don't know if they're back. I don't even know what back means in Jacksonville terms. Matt says, if we do get Bryce, what position should we get with the Cleveland position? I think they need to go run quarterback, wide receiver, running back in no particular order, skill position. How should we lose tomorrow? Rex, Cat, Mills at wide receiver. I think he should just take a knee every time. What do you think about Lovey going straight to Cal to keep his job? I don't know the way they said it, I think he probably wants to talk to him, but I don't think it's like that. The other interesting thing about that is, and I do think that organizations like at least do this and they at least look at it. Like, if you look at the comments like in these stories, and I don't want to act like that's like a big measure of how you gauge reality and how everyone feels or not, but it is interesting that last year when the Texans with the McCown stuff and all that, like if you read the comments, it was almost scary. Like every tweet they put out, it was almost scary. But the Lovey stuff, boy, people think Lovey sucks. And it's not just people here. And I think the fact that Lovey has coached in three of the 32 cities, and most of those cities with people who actually like follow closely don't look at his tenure like 100% favorably. The Chicago thing is interesting. I've laid it out. He had Ron Rivera the first 3 years, ran him out of town after the Super Bowl and fell on his face for a few years and then had to hire Marinelli. But I think for the most part, like people realize that Lovey's just not that he's not a modern day football coach. And we knew what the deal was with Lovey. So if they look at those comments, like as far as like any backlash, like there might be a few people that say some stuff, and that comes with the internet. But those people don't know the Texans. They don't really know the situation. And they're not looking at it like really objectively. So yeah, you can't keep having these one-year coaches, but the situation's a lot different. But the comments just seems like people kind of understand that you don't want Lovie Smith coaching your team too long. That's just what I saw. Sean says, nice to see the Jags win. A good young QB and quality coaching can make you competitive fast, especially in that division. I want to get into that, Sean, because, of course, this is a Texans Center channel, and I like to localize. I want to get into, how the Jags got in this situation and how the Titans got in this situation. Because I think as far as the future goes, the Titans are in a crossroads. The Jags arrow is pointing up. I mean, they feel really good about themselves, but how did they go from worst to first? We'll get into that in a second. Might actually be pretty encouraging for some Texans fans. It was more of a forward pass than Mills' throw last week, although Mills was backwards, though. So, yeah, obviously. How do you feel about Lovey pleading for his job? Good for him. He should. I don't have any issue with that. Someone's bringing up Lopez wanting Harbaugh. Yes, Lopez wants Harbaugh. He's liked Harbaugh for a while. I used to like Harbaugh. I don't want to see the damn Oilers colors in the uniform. Let's move on from that. More red, though. I think you might get that. Did you read about how Lovey used a picture that said the Texans will be 22? Yeah, what the hell was that? Like, even if you're the ultimate optimist, I saw that in the Rappaport thing. I actually put it on the rundown. So Lovey Smith before practices, and we were at every training camp practice, but we weren't like in the locker room. He put a picture out that said the Texans would be 2022 world champions. What? Like, who even takes that serious? Like, the ultimate Texans optimist. Do you think Brandon Cook saw that and said, I mean, and he was all in. He was drinking the Easterby Kool-Aid at training camp. You think like Brandon Cooks or anyone else looked at that and said, yeah, we're going to be the world champions. We're going to be the world champions. That seems like I don't know. Like, even if I'm buying into what Lovey's selling, the second that you put on to start off a team meeting by saying we're going to be 2022 world champs, I'm at least looking at you a little bit sideways. That seems kind of weird. Lovey is delusional. Rather have a crackhead as head coach right now. I don't know about that. Although it depends which crackhead. Probably been some pretty good coaches that have been crackheads. Did Bryce Young meet with Caserio? When would that? Why? Like, why would that happen? We got a while. Who's your Super Bowl picks? Mine is Bengals versus Eagles. I haven't really thought about it. I kind of want to see the bracket before I do that, although the Bengals are really hot. Dawes was losing the ball as his arm was moving forward. That's why they keep the fumble. Yeah, I know, but I feel like I've seen that happen, but it's still he's still touching it. Like when he threw it. Like when he threw it, it was still like kind of on his hand. I get it. That's why they called it, but I don't know. That seemed a little interesting. Hopefully this time tomorrow we'll be talking about the first round pick, the number 1 pick. I'm assuming you're saying, yeah. Lovey be wild. And J-Rock, isn't that great? Like, would you like? I've been on some like sorry ass teams, and I'm not like some sort of like going like Hoop Dreams or like Al Bundy or Uncle Rico or something like that. But like, when you were on a sorry ass team, like at any level, like what would you like? There were times like game to game, the coach is going to fire you up and gas you up and say, we got to do this. But like, my coach wasn't going to go up there and say, hey, we're going to win the district championship. Like senior year, we sucked. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like as a player if Lovey Smith goes up there to start a meeting and says, guys, we're going to be the 2022 world champs. My buzz is gone. What is wrong with this guy? We're going to be the 2022 world champs? Good Lord. Like, you want to say like division, or we want to win our division, or we want to go week to week, or, we want to surprise people. Okay. We're going to be the 2022 world champs. I mean, that comes across like it already, like you already look at Lovey's system and stuff, and it just seems kind of like Stone Age. I think that's the way that James Ihedebo, Super Bowl winning safety, buddy of mine, described Lovey's system. But like, we're going we're gonna win a Super Bowl. Like that, doesn't that just come across as like the old ass coach that just goes in there and is just saying stuff that doesn't make any sense? We're gonna win the championship, the Super Bowl. Izzy says he feels like Cooks is gonna stay. Why would you want him? Like, really, why would you want him? Like, it's not like we're talking about Aaron Rodgers being disgruntled or, you talked Randy Moss off of a ledge or something like that, or, DeAndre Hopkins or Dwayne Brown held out and then they're coming back. Like, why would you want a guy like Brandon Cooks, who is a guy who was supposed to be one of your leaders? He was supposed to be one of your culture guys. He drank the Kool-Aid. He didn't give a damn about losing or anything until Jack Easterby left. And then all of a sudden, he basically disappears from the team for a week. He puts out tweets saying he's going to be a tattletale. When he's asked about putting out those tweets that said he was going to be a tattletale, he said he was going to keep stuff in-house. He comes back like it's the ultimate fake hustle. He scores a touchdown. He says, I'm still here. He gets asked about that. He says, I want to keep stuff in-house. Why the hell would you want Brandon Cooks on your team? Honestly. Why? I'm legit asking. Because if we're talking about like DeAndre Hopkins in his prime or Devontae Adams saying certain stuff, or Deebo Samuel removes San Francisco 49ers from his Instagram profile and says, whatever the hell he says, okay. Talking about Brandon Cooks. Why would you want that guy around? Like, I think they overdo the culture thing, and I think their culture has looked silly at times, especially when they had the POS, Jack Easterby, person of service overseeing the culture. But I mean, you got, as far as culture, I don't see how you can keep that guy around. So that much of an unprofessional flake. I know now he's acting like, you got to go to work and stuff like that. Okay, good for you. I've never had a problem with Brandon. I've talked to Brandon a couple of times, had some good interviews with Brandon. I don't think he's like a bad guy, but I would not want him in my locker room. I think there might be more to why he's already been on 4 teams this early in his career. I mean, that's ridiculous. I would not, if I were general manager, I wouldn't want Brandon Cooks on my squad anymore. I wouldn't even let his ass come back, quite honestly. I don't even know why he's still playing. But if you feel like he's staying, that's fine. But you're setting a hell of a low bar if you're getting to the point. It's one thing for, Deshaun Watson to demand a trade. And I think if Deshaun had wanted to stay here, I think they maybe would have stuck by him and tried to keep him here because he's Deshaun Watson. But I mean, if you're going to let Brandon Cooks do that and then bring him back, all right. I mean, it's going to be new guys for the most part. A lot of new guys in the locker room. I'm good on that, though. Matt says, hey, Landry, any plans to bring the OG Lopez to the show one day? Insight and comedy. You and him are like barbecue and beer. Perfect match. Go to the appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, I'll bring Lopez on sometime, although he's more of a fishing YouTube guy. But yeah, me and Lopez are on. We spend 4 hours together each day. I spend more time with Lopez than I do anybody. We're pretty much married. Or common law, at least. Not married, common law. We'll go me and Lopez are common law. So yeah. I played for Mike Gundy at OSU, and he put a letter on our lockers with a countdown clock till greatness. Yeah, but Mike Gundy's a good coach, and OSU is at least good. Like OSU's been good since. Little known fact, I went to OSU my first semester of college. Shout out to Bennett Dining. I don't know if you know about that, J-Rock. Bennett Dining. That is the best dining hall in college. It was right before they got the rec center. I just didn't really like it, but it's really nice now. I went there when Texas played OSU in the Colt McCoy days. Beat that ass, by the way. But yeah, I stayed in some on-campus apartments with 3 guys from high school. I think it was called Patchen, maybe. Not sure. But Bennett Dining, God, I would eat there every day if it were a restaurant. But OSU's good. It's not like a Texans rebuild type of thing. Speaking of Cooks, what will we get for him in trade? I don't know. I think it's going to be like an Amari Cooper 5th-round pick type of joint. Although I heard they probably could have got a second from the Cowboys. Could be true, could not mean. I think you mean 2023 world champs? No. He said 2022. I think that's what the report said. 2022 world champs was what the report said that Lovey was seeing. After seeing Peterson's success with the Jags, doesn't that mean the Texans should be looking for an offensive coach? I don't know. Cooks needs to get traded. I agree. If we fire Levy, the rest of the coaching staff gone as well. I think Frank Ross can stay. I think Frank Ross will be the special teams guy that stays. And I don't see any reason why the next coach wouldn't want Frank Ross. They're top 3, I think, in special teams DVOA. They've only had one bad game, and it was the Cleveland game. And Frank Ross wasn't teaching them to miss those tackles. But I think Frank Ross could stay. Cooks can never lie. Liked him. Let's bring Pep was trash. Tampa 2 is outdated. Yes, that's a lot. But yeah. Lovey gone right after we lose tomorrow on Black Monday. Probably so. Might even be before that. Hopefully the Texans draft Bryce Young. Yes. Are we also scoreboard watching Miami tomorrow? No. We're just watching the Texans. We don't need to. I assume that Miami thing's not true. But if it was, then yeah, you'd have your guy. Why do we think Caserio should get another year? Sean's asking. He did his job, got the cap mostly right, and added draft pick. Shouldn't we get a coach like Ryan's and ask who he'd want to work with? I mean, I'm not a favor of the coach picking his general manager, although I think Kyle Shanahan kind of did that in San Francisco. I think Caserio inherited a hell of a mess, and the coaching search was a little different the last 2 years. But do I have full trust in Nick Caserio? No, I do not. And I don't think anyone really should. But I mean, let's be honest. I've said this before in videos. Like, you guys understand, most of you, what the coaching search has been like the last 2 years. The Deshaun drama in more ways than one, the no cap space, all that type of stuff. Cal McNair's reputation, which I think is a little bit better now. No assets, no Deshaun trade. So, I mean, you would have to, like, has there been a similar situation where a GM has had, that type of a mess that they inherited? I don't. Let's get into how the Texans get to where these two teams were before I wind down and get ready for the game of the year tomorrow. Tennessee Titans, I think it's pretty simple. You hire the right coach that gets the most of his players. Now, there's other little things in there. They were willing to roll the dice on Jeffrey Simmons. I say roll the dice, but Jeffrey Simmons kind of fell in their lap, and they were able to get a guy who had some character concerns and a torn ACL, and they inherited one of the best players in the NFL. Maybe the best player in the division, right there with Derrick Henry, in Jeffrey Simmons. And I also think that has a little bit to do with Mike Vrabel, that Mike Vrabel feels that he can, get through to the players. So as far as how Tennessee got to this position that the Texans are trying to get to, and they've really done it for a few years, they've been the best team in the division. I think it all starts with Mike Vrabel, which is, I guess, encouraging because the Texans will have the opportunity, hopefully on Monday, to hire the right coach. So with Tennessee, I think that's it. That's how they got to this position. Now the arrow is pointing sideways at the very least, but I think it's pointing down because they're about to have to release some guys. But how they got here was hiring Mike Vrabel. The Jags, I think there's a lot more layers to the Jags and how they go from being the worst team in the league the last 2 years and really probably the worst team in the NFL since 2017 when they went to the AFC Championship game. They accumulated a lot of young talent. They just kept accumulating young talent. Didn't always work out, but the most important piece, and I think this is pretty obvious, was with the number 1 pick, they got Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence, while he hasn't been the second coming of Peyton Manning or the second coming of who else were they talking about? Andrew Luck and John Elway. He's been pretty good, and he is probably at the very top of the list for why Jacksonville went from worst to first. So if there is that guy in this upcoming draft, and we don't have to get in the quarterback debate, we got 4 months to do that. But if there is that guy, then that at least kind of catapults the Texans towards that direction. And like Jacksonville accumulated extra picks. They got them for Jalen Ramsey. They got a couple extra firsts. And with those extra picks, they were aggressive. They drafted Travis Etienne after James Robinson had 1,000 yards. Etienne was, I think, top 7 in the league in rushing this year. So they did that. The extra draft picks and the quarterback. They hired the right coach in Doug Peterson, just like the Tennessee Titans. Again, the Texans are going to have that opportunity. And something else they did is when they had money to spend, I mean, they addressed what they needed most, and they took care of it, specifically this year. And they deserve a hell of a lot of credit for that. Now, you might say, well, Trevor Lawrence deserves credit too, but we've already acknowledged that Trevor Lawrence is near the top of the reasons why the Jags are where they are. But they realized that they needed more weapons for Trevor Lawrence in the offseason. And a lot of people made fun of him. I mean, I would be lying if I said I didn't kind of raise my eyebrows a little bit when they paid Christian Kirk what they paid him. But they realized they needed weapons. They brought in Christian Kirk, 4-year deal. They brought in Zay Jones, 3-year deal. They brought in Evan Ingram on a 1-year deal. And all 3 of those guys had career years. So, look at what Evan Ingram was doing with the Giants. Like, Giants fans were really out on him. Zay Jones, I mean, he was in Buffalo, then he was with the Raiders. And then Christian Kirk, there was a Jags tax. The Texans are probably going to have to pay that. There aren't players like dying to play in Jacksonville or Houston, although they might be a little bit more excited to play for Jacksonville now. But the Jags, they realized Trent Baalke, although I think he missed on the first pick, despite Walker's first game. I think Hutchinson probably would have been the right pick. Man, they would be scary with him. But they addressed, they got the quarterback, they got the coach, they addressed the need, and over a period of time, they were putting together young talent, and with those extra draft picks, they were being very aggressive. If you have 1 first-round pick, you probably aren't taking a running back. They did it, though. Wouldn't mind the Texans doing that this year or next. But that's really how the Texans get here. How hard is it? I don't feel like I'm watching Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. Maybe Trevor Lawrence gets there. But you remember what it was like when Peyton Manning, I think in 99 was when he first made the playoffs. You kind of realized, okay, yeah, he's going to be good for a long time. And by the time the Texans were in the league in 2002 and Peyton Manning was on Indianapolis and, he was best player in the league and all that type of stuff, you knew, damn, this sucks. But, I mean, if you were in Houston watching, yeah, he's going to be good. Then 2002, man, it's already hard enough to be an expansion team. But when you got Peyton Manning and then you had to overcome that hurdle, the old Oilers, all that, like that was tough. That's not the case with this. So those are the ways in which it happens. The Texans have the assets. Now, is the quarterback available? I don't know. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. They think, you can build a team and then you can find the quarterback. No. When the quarterback's available, you've got to get the guy. Do they believe he's available at the top of the draft? Who knows? I do. I think Bryce Young's the guy. And I think even if they miss out on Bryce Young, it's not the end of the world if they draft well, because I don't think he's going to be terrible no matter what. But I think it's worth it. I think Bryce Young's the guy. They might think it's C.J. Stroud. Oh, they might think it's Will Levis. But if you find that guy and you think he's there, you don't just hold off on that. There have been multiple NFL drafts where the guy hasn't been available. Go through and look at some of the names. Sometimes he's not there. So when he's available, you got to make it happen. Then you got to hire the right coach. I know this is like no bleep Sherlock, but I'm just talking about what Tennessee did. Because Tennessee never found that quarterback, but they had the right coach, and the right coach was able to get the most out of Ryan Tannehill. Also got to have good assistants. Credit Arthur Smith for the job he did with Ryan Tannehill. Credit whoever the hell their offensive coordinator is right now for getting a little bit out of Josh Dobbs. But you got to have the right coach. You got to have the right assistants. You got to have the quarterback. And when the offseason comes and you have cap space, you address what your weaknesses are and you go all in on them and you fix them. That's what the Jags did. I actually thought Nick Caserio did a good job with the secondary this year. Probably some of his best work. Secondary was an issue. Steven Nelson was a good signing. Derek Stingley was a good pick, although I know the Sauce Gardner stuff is there. A lot of people feel a certain type of way about that. Jalen Petrie, going to be a good player. And I think Desmond King, Tremont Smith, Javier Thomas, I think they're good depth guys. You're another starting safety away from having, I think, a pretty good secondary, especially given how young they are. But that's just how you do it. That's how you get there. And you also get there by losing tomorrow and getting that number one pick, because that makes it a lot easier. TOS Skill says, does Bryce Young equal Jalen Hurts comparison? Jalen's a little bit bigger. Doesn't have it. I think he can spin it, but he's not as, I don't think he's as good as Bryce as far as just all the makeup of a quarterback. But Jalen's definitely a better runner. Jalen's elite. Jalen was playing some running back at Alabama when Tua came in for him. Would you take Bieniemy or Leftwich as head coach? I would not. No, not at all. Charles, Bryce Young's ceiling is definitely higher than Trevor Lawrence. Bryce has all the tools. I like your optimism. Don't know if I agree, but I like your optimism. Cebu says, I have so much excitement to watch this team lose tomorrow. Such an odd feeling. Yeah, but it's all over after that. Then it's right back to winning. Can they interview coaches in the playoffs? They can. I forgot what the new rule is. I think it's like maybe a week. D'Amico Ryan, Shane Steichen, Eric Bieniemy, one of them coaching. Who you want to see? I like D'Amico, but who knows? We'll see. J-Rock, I saw cap and trade in the chat. How much does the number one pick cap hit look like? I think it's not as much as you think. It's really nothing anymore. But Jags beat the Titans. Trevor Lawrence, you didn't have to do it, man. You didn't have to do it. Bunch of defense. Tennessee Titans, they might not even be able to walk to the bus. They got to ice up so much after that effort. They left it all out there. But, yeah, it didn't work out for them. And I feel like a lot of you do. Very, very jealous. But you know what? We're 13 hours away from the start of the game. Hopefully the Texans can lose, and hopefully we have something exciting to talk about tomorrow. We'll have the post-game show for you. Probably about 3:15-ish after kick. My guys will be in here, Melts and Stutes. Final post-game show of the season. Then it gets real crazy around here. Subscribe to the channel. Listen to In the Loop on the Odyssey app and Sports Radio 610, 10 to 2. We'll be with you throughout the offseason. We'll be at the draft. We'll be at the coaching press conference. We'll interview the coach after the press conference live on the air. There's going to be a lot of reasons to be excitement. Hopefully Cal does the right thing. Hopefully, despite Lovey's efforts, they're able to lose a little Sam Ehlinger heart never hurt anyone. And no matter what happens, whether they win, whether they lose, whether they draft Bryce, whether they don't, whether they trade, whatever, we are all in this together. Happy Football Sunday.